Hello everyone. So here we are for another career and spirituality conversation. So my name is Julie Pone. For those who don't know me yet, I help spiritual seekers having a career experience to enjoy their career and grow spiritually and professionally. And today I am joined by Katie McManus. Hi, Katie. How are you today?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm great. I'm excited to have that conversation. And so before I launch, we launch into it, we're going to have just a 2 minutes deep breath and grounding for everyone, starting by me, so that again, I'm getting all chilled. And so for everyone who can, don't do that if you're in a car, just close your eyes for a few minutes. And first, I'm going to invite us to press our feet on the ground for a second, just acknowledging the presence of the ground, the earth underneath us, and feeling that support. And just think about being grounded, getting that intention to be grounded today. And then moving our focus back up onto our chest area where our heart is beating. And you may place a hand over your heart if you wish to. And from there, just imagine as if your breath is flowing in and out directly through your heart. And for a minute, let's just breathe a little bit deeper and a little bit slower than we usually do. Nice, slow, deep breath. Lovely. Thank you. So whenever you feel ready, you can open your eyes again. And hello. So Katie, so nice to have you here. So Katie, you are a business strategist and money mindset coach or mentor specialized for ADHD entrepreneurs.
Yes.
And yes, very curious about yes, about the money mindset, about the ADHD. And so I always launch these conversations with like the 2 questions. And my first one, if you're ready for it, is what's your definition or your relationship to spirituality? What does spirituality mean to you?
I think for everyone, spirituality is going to be different. For me, spirituality has always been this tapping into whatever knowing there is in the universe. Like I'm very agnostic in my beliefs. And I feel like there's this sense of knowledge all around us and a sense of grounding all around us. And when we just kind of drop into the moment and are mindful and connect up with it, we have access to power beyond what we would normally have if we were just continuing to just do in our lives.
Yeah.
And I think the pathway to tap into that spirituality is different for everyone. You know, there are some people who are really into nature, and so going into nature and communing with nature will be the pathway. For others, religions are the doorway for them. For me, it's always been in like quiet moments where I'm just kind of like bring myself into my breath, meditating, using my tarot cards, little moments in nature. I'm not going to pretend that I love being outdoors, but
Full disclosure. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah, like going outside my house is great, but
Okay.
like not going to go on a 3-day hiking trip to
Okay.
be with nature. That's not happening. But I also think that that spirituality can be fun. It doesn't have to be like this serious thing that like is like a regimented practice. It can also just be like you speaking with your spirit guides, and they can be goofy, you know, like I have this firm belief that I have this spirit guide who's like a really like rough and tumble businessman from New Jersey.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, it's whatever works for you, and it doesn't have to look like anything. That's my philosophy around it.
Okay, I like it. So like it sounds like you have a more metaphysical rather than religious understanding of spirituality. I get, I'm very much, I'd be following you on down that line probably if I had to categorize. But yeah, I like that. Oh yeah, and the tarot. Oh, we're going to talk about tarot as well. And so so now you're a coach and you're supporting entrepreneurs, but you haven't, that's not how you started. So that's second question. What's a little bit about your career trajectory? Like what brought you to doing what you're doing now, and how did that weave? Because there's some interesting, I've seen some interesting stuff.
Yeah. And you know, it's funny. I like back into high school, I always wanted to be a teacher. And I loved the French language. Actually, I had some really incredible French teachers throughout high school. And I actually spent my senior year of high school at the local community college because I hated high school. And so, Madame de Bauer, she was my professor there. And I had this idea because they were my French teachers were just so glamorous and so kind, and they loved taking their students on trips. So I was like, I want to do that, right? And I went to college wanting to be a French professor, and immediately got like reality shoved in my face by one of my French professors that for each tenure track job in modern languages in general, there were 349 published PhD candidates. And my French advisor at the time explained to me that she was never going to get tenure.
Oh my God, seriously?
That she was literally like living off of her trust fund because like she wasn't getting paid enough to live off of.
Oh my God. Like,
and she's like,
vocation.
Yeah, but it's like, it has to be a calling. And while I love French, I have a lot of different interests. And she pointed that out. She's like, you have a lot of different interests. Why don't you pick something else? And I was like, okay. So I was also majoring in philosophy at the time. And that's actually how I got involved in meditation. I had a couple different mentors in the philosophy department who practiced transcendental meditation. They opened the door to me for that. And then kind of showed me how I could go and learn that, and kind of supported me through that. And then I don't know, I just kind of like listened to this voice in my head that was telling me this doesn't have to be it. Like the academic track doesn't have to be for you. And I went to the Google machine and I typed in, you know, different hobbies, different things I was interested in. I lived in France for like 6 months at that point, so I can learn French. And I had developed this love of wine, and full disclosure, because there was a wine bar near my apartment with a very attractive bartender. My girlfriends would go and like, just be like, oh, hello, how are you?
Comment ça va? Voulez-vous?
J'ai envie à goûter tous les vins.
C'est lequel le meilleur?
And so I was like, okay, well, careers in wine, let's look that up. And so I went to the Google machine, and there were 2 careers in wine: making wine and being a sommelier. And I was like, well, I don't like chemistry, so that I'm not making it. So let's be a sommelier. Let's become a wine steward. So I moved to California, became a sommelier, did that for a couple of years, got burnt out. The restaurant industry is just really, really rough. And I ended up, I took off 6 months to try everything. I acted, I taught knitting, I ran a wine shop, I ran a yarn shop, I did a whole slew of different things. And then I ended up in sales, and I worked in sales for a really long time. And there was this voice in my head that said that I really wanted to be a coach. And I'd had a coach pretty much through every career jump that I had made. And I just kept thinking like, well, you're too young. no one's going to listen to you. You're too young. What do you have to say? You're too, like, all this stuff. And this is so common. Like, people will think that they're too young right up until that split second they're too old.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
oh, yeah. It's like avocado, you know, they are like, you know, they're rock solid and then they're too ripe. It's like, no good.
Exactly. You have to turn the refrigerator right at the right moment. Anyway, and then like ultimately I didn't become a coach until I got in a really bad car accident and I had a concussion. And it was a mild traumatic brain injury actually. And I had to be on leave from work for about 8 months.
Okay.
And I went and got certified as a coach in that time and started my business. And I actually started off as a dating coach for men.
Oh.
Because I lived in San Francisco, and I don't know if you know anything about dating in San Francisco. It is miserable. It is not a good scene.
No, like not in San Francisco. No, like.
So it was funny because like I just went out and I just announced it to everyone. I marketed, I was on social media, and I got one guy and 8 women. So the universe was very firm. No, you're not going to be a dating coach for men. Here's a bunch of women. Only one of the women stuck with the dating topic. Okay. Everyone else needed help on how they were being at work. You know, they needed to help, you know, with their executive presence, with how they were setting boundaries, with how they were projecting themselves as a leader. Yeah. And so I went back and I got more training in leadership development. Mm-hmm. And then all my friends from the coaching program and the leadership program were like, wait a minute, how are you getting clients? Like, how are you doing this and how are you doing that? I didn't realize that I'd taken all my years in sales. Yeah. And applied it to starting a business. And it's just like, I'd created a system that just really worked really elegantly for me. And I started showing them, and it worked really well for them. And I felt like when I was explaining things to them, I just saw that light go on in their head that, oh my God, I think I can do this. Yeah. You know, this might be possible for me to actually turn this into a business. And I honestly felt like I was teaching alchemy. Like, how do you turn your words into money? And unfortunately, I didn't get the whole eternal life bit, but well, you know, there's still time.
It's funny for someone who didn't like chemistry. Now you're doing the alchemy.
Yeah, right. But yeah, no, then I just started showing people how to start their businesses, and there was no turning back. Like it's my calling. It's exactly what I was meant to do, but I wouldn't have gotten here if I hadn't bounced around so much and just kind of followed my instincts.
Okay. So you allowed yourself to not stay stubborn on one thing. That's what it was like. And not being, how do you say, not being ashamed of changing direction.
Yeah, being okay with quitting stuff and saying, no, this isn't right for me. Yeah, it's hard when you do it the first few times. And it's hard when you've like spent a lot of time in investing in one path of your life. Yeah. You say, actually, this isn't for me. But it's the most liberating, powerful thing that you can do, because you're never going to get to the point where you're happy with everything until you make some really tough changes. You know, what's that saying that like, if you live a life making easy decisions, you're going to end up living a really hard life. Oh, yes. Yeah. You know, but if you live a life like always committed to making the hardest decision, like your life is going to be fairly easy. Yeah. Yeah. So and like, so what's your, like, talking about making decisions, for you, what's the process, or how do you know that, first of all, okay, now this is definitely not working, and how do you know this is the right next step for you? Do you have, it does somehow meditation or some practices come into that you're to have made such clear and, you know, launching yourself into the uncertain every time? Yeah, you know, it's for me, there's like this switch gets flipped for me that this is not it. Okay. This is not it. Like, whatever this is, like, I was in Philadelphia for a year and a half, and there was a moment where the switch got flipped, and I was like, this is not where I want to be. The next day I gave notice to my apartment for my landlords. It's incredible when you make those decisions. So like, for instance, when I decided I didn't want to be in Philadelphia, it was February. My lease wasn't up until June, the end of June. So literally I would have just moved out 2 weeks ago. I gave my landlords notice, you know, kind of hoping I'd be able to at some point ask if I could leave early. And they actually asked if I wanted to move out early. because the rental market at that time was so hot. They were like, we can actually rent it for more than we'll be able to rent it in the summer.
Yeah.
And everything just always works out better than you can expect without even having to ask for it. When you start listening to that voice saying like, this is not it, like you have to make a decision right now. And like, I don't know where I want to live yet. Like I summer on Cape Cod,
Yeah.
and my stuff is in storage right now. And I'm honestly in this moment where I'm just kind of like listening to the universe and myself, like, where do I want to end up?
Mhm.
And I think to follow that voice, you have to be willing to play a little experiment with your life, because it's not always going to be right. It's like, this is where I'm called to be in this moment, but it might not be the long-term place.
Mm.
But I think really like deciding this is not it. So I'm going to step away from this, and then just paying attention to the things that are calling your attention.
Uh-huh.
I mean, acting was a great example of this.
Mhm.
For 6 months in San Francisco, I was a professional actor. I got paid very little money. Like, I did not make enough to live off of. But it was just like this voice in my head that told me, you just have to try this. You just have to experience it. And I'm so glad I did, because I learned so much from that experience that has helped me for the rest of my life. But like, it wasn't the ultimate path I wanted to be on. But also, if I hadn't done that, it wouldn't have put me in positions to get other jobs, to make other friends, to expand my life in the way that it did. So like, I think a lot of times people get hung up on, I have to make the right choice and then everything's going to work out from there.
Oh,
and that's
yeah.
not how it goes. It's like, you have to make the right choice. That might be the thing that you're going to do forever, but it also just might be the thing that kind of lily pads you to the next one.
Yeah. Yeah. And I find that anxiety around, as if there can only be at any moment one right path or one right choice. And if we miss it, we're doomed. So that's a lot of pressure. And so the way that you're describing how you went along, is like loads of trust, lots of being risk averse as well. Sounds like,
I'm very risk tolerant.
Yeah, risk tolerant.
Yeah.
Because it's like, it reminds me of the topic of finding your life purpose. As I find it so like an anguish, as if there is one thing that we are meant to be doing, and like I'm still not there. And on the opposite, you just kind of followed steps. Okay, I'm gonna try that. Okay, great. Now next next experience.
Yeah, it's so funny you mentioned that, because when I was going through coach training and going through leadership training, there's a huge focus on what's your life purpose.
Okay.
Throughout the trainings, and it always pissed me off, because it's like, it just felt like too heavy. And like, I don't know, like, I want to have a lot of impact in my life. Like, I want to help a lot of people, but like in no one way. And I also want to experience life in a certain way, but like, I can't boil that down to one sentence.
Yeah.
I became like really, really grumpy about the whole exercise.
Stop telling me there is one thing I get to find that I want to do. I want to do many things. I agree. I find that it's a bit heavy. If I believe that if there is a purpose that we're coming here with, is to actually have experiences, to experience life. And and that's really what you've been doing, experiencing different things. And from like French knitting, where did the knitting come from?
It was funny. So my mom and I, when I was like 14, decided that we needed a mother-daughter activity every week. And so one summer we took a knitting class at this local knitting shop on Cape Cod. And it was funny because that summer I always joke that I learned how to make a baby blanket. And I also learned about divorce and alimony, because the other women in the group, it was a lot of women who summer on Cape Cod, and we lived on Cape Cod full time. And they were all like second, third, fourth wives, and they'd been divorced multiple times. And I remember going back to school in the fall and being in my reading class, and my teacher's like, what did you all learn this summer? And I raised my hand. I was like, well, I learned that if you divorced a rich man, then and you meet someone else, you have to wait until the alimony runs up before you get married, or you have to wait until you meet someone who's richer. Like, and she's like, tell me more. Interesting.
Speaking of pockets of knowledge, so have you had an opportunity to make good use of this knowledge, Katie? Yet? Oh, that's so funny. Yeah. Oh.
I mean, fortunately, I've never been divorced, but I've also never been married. So I've never actually had an opportunity to follow advice,
Oh, yeah. And so you did that with your mom, and then down the line you became a knit.
Oh yeah, knitting. Sorry, I got distracted. Anyway, that's the knitting. So when I moved to San Francisco, there was a beautiful yarn shop on Divisadero, Atelier Yarns. And I was a customer for a really long time. And I was there with a friend. She was like, why don't you work here? Like, why don't you just get a part-time job? You can get a discount on all the yarn. You spend so much money here anyway. So I turned to the manager and asked her, like, are you hiring? She's like, matter of fact, we are. Like, it's one Saturday a month. And here's what's included. You're gonna have to do an interview with the owner. The owner, like, amazing woman, and I respect her a lot, and I like her now, but she terrified me for that interview because she literally had me knit in front of her and told me that I was knitting all wrong.
Oh.
Yeah. So anyway, I worked there, and then I actually managed the shop for a while. I taught knitting classes. I made a ton of friends teaching knitting classes. It was a great experience. And it's honestly, that's one of the things, like, learning how to teach a room of 10 women who learn in completely different models and ways, how to make fabric out of 2 sticks and a piece of string, was probably one of the best skills I ever learned for what I do now.
Oh,
because you have to figure out, like, on the spot, how do you explain this dexterous, little movement 17 different ways to someone if they're not getting it this time and that time, and then maybe they have to be shown, maybe you need to guide their hands, maybe you have to explain it, maybe you need like a funny metaphor.
So that helps you with, like, how to educate people and teaching. I guess the acting comes across really well when you get to present yourself and
so I think the acting really got me comfortable with rejection, because when you're acting, you're auditioning more than you're actually acting.
Yeah, fair enough.
And I mean, here's the thing, like, you're getting rejected for who you are. You're getting rejected for how you look. You're getting rejected for, like, the sound of your voice and a whole bunch of stuff. And you have no way of knowing. But you're never going to get an acting job if you don't put yourself out there and you don't continue to, like, send in your headshot and send in your resume and do all these things.
Okay. So resilience and grit.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, I don't know, like, asking for what you want. I remember there was one short film I did. It was a student film, and my character got attacked in a parking garage by a murderer. And so I remember we were trying, and we didn't have, like, a stunt person. So literally this guy, who was a very nice human, was trying to, like, throw me up against a car gently.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember at one point, because it hurt, like, he was doing it gently, but, like, it wasn't working for the scene. And the director was like, this isn't, like, it's not believable. But we did 15 takes, and, like, I was turning black and blue on my back. And I finally yelled at this guy. I'm like, just throw me on the car. Like, you're actually hurting me more by trying to be gentle. Like, just do it and get it done with. And like, I don't know where that came from, because I'm usually, like, a very kind, like, gentle, soft person who, like, isn't going to yell at people and, tell them that directly what I need them to do. And he did, and we got the scene, and it was perfect. And but, like, it was just, he needed the permission. And I think a lot of what my clients need is they need permission to do the thing. Right. And so, like, but seeing in that moment that he just needed the permission from me, and there was no one else in that room who could have done it. Like, I had to be the person to say, you have permission here, and if you don't do it, it's actually going to cause harm. I mean, I learned a lot from acting, but, like, the main thing I learned is how boring it actually is, because you're really just sitting around a lot waiting for, like, the crew to get things set up, lighting departments, you know, you're being told like your hair is being adjusted just so, because like maybe you had a bang that was just right here and it has to be falling the exact right way because they have to go back to that one moment.
Get you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So not for you in the end. So when like, yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, but your story keeps reminding me of you know, Steve Jobs had given like a talk for I don't know, Stanford or somewhere, where he talks about his journey and that it seemed like it wasn't making sense, and it's only at some stage when you turn back and you're connecting the dots, it looks like, you know, having done things that don't seem to make sense with each other, but then at the end, bam.
You know, it's so funny you say that. So throughout this whole journey, I had no idea what I was doing, but I had this sense that I was on the right path. Right. So I kept telling people, I would say this to my friends and anyone who would listen, like, I feel like I'm collecting ingredients for a cake.
Yeah.
I have no idea what kind of cake I'm making though. Like, I don't know if it's chocolate cake. I don't know if it's like a white cake with colorful sprinkles, like, but I'm getting ingredients as I go, and it's going to work out at some point. Like at some point, I'm going to look at the ingredients that I have and say, it makes sense what I'm meant to do with these things now. And I think to have trust in that and be okay with just kind of bouncing around takes a certain level of faith and spirituality, right? Because you have to trust that the universe really does have your back and really is giving you what you need, even if you don't understand why you need it yet.
And how do you build that trust? Like, you know, as a, like, I know you, well, you got it, but like as an advice for those of us who maybe are a little bit on the sidelines of our own.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I mean, the best way I can describe it is give the universe little opportunities to build trust with you. Right? Like, I joke that I have really excellent parking luck and also pharmacy luck.
Pharmacy luck.
So yeah, so like if I am going to an area that I know is going to have really tough parking, I'm just grateful in advance for the parking spot I get. And I always get, like, there have maybe been 5 times in my life that I haven't gotten the perfect parking spot. You know, and I'm talking like parking in New York City or San Francisco, like places where it is really hard to park. I get parking. And I know it's because I have this trust in this relationship with the universe. Also, like when I go to the pharmacy, like there's been 1 or 2 times where I've ended up in a long line, but usually there's 2 people ahead of me. And as soon as I get in line, like 15 people line up behind me.
So you either have pharmacy luck or you're either bad luck for the people who are.
Yeah, I know, right?
But sorry to break the news.
Well, don't tell them that. Come on. But like you have to let the universe kind of show you that it has your back in small ways, right? And then also when you're in those big moments, you have to just trust, right? Because here's the thing: if you expect that everything's going to go to hell in a handbasket, it's going to go to hell in a handbasket. But if you just believe that everything is going to work out in your favor, I don't know, maybe it's spicy psychology, but like your brain is actually going to flip a switch. So it's going to start looking for opportunities for things to work out better. Right. And there's just, once you start looking and you start seeing how many opportunities there are for things to work out better, you know, it's really hard for things to not work out well.
Yeah, I like what you're saying, because for some people who might be skeptical about the universe thing, it's actually like, that's just understanding how the subconscious works. And it's like when you buy a yellow car and then suddenly you start seeing yellow cars everywhere, right?
Exactly.
So like we're programming the subconscious so that it sees what you're looking for. And so if we are in a story where we only have bad luck, our subconscious is gonna do that for us, gonna keep showing us the bad luck. So yeah, I like what you're saying. So yes, so it's whether you're skeptical about the universe luck or not, we have arguments, people. And so because now, like you're coaching for ADHD entrepreneur, like I'm guessing I'm guessing you're not excluding. I'm guessing it's not.
No, I primarily work with people with ADHD, but I do also have some neurotypical people who just like the way I explain things and work with me also. Yeah.
So in the connecting the dots, how did that ADHD part came about for you?
Kind of accidentally. I was a business coach for a long time, and it was funny. I noticed that most of my clients had ADHD, and a lot of them had been diagnosed later in life. And some of them had been diagnosed, and some of them got diagnosed in the course of working with me. And I don't know. I think what ended up happening before I even named it as my niche, they realized that I was explaining things, and maybe they didn't even consciously realize this. I was explaining things in a way that was approachable for someone with ADHD. And I also have a very like flexible way of telling people how to do stuff. You know, so if I know that you're really good at reading and like that's what you're passionate about, like if I'm telling you to do market research, I might put an emphasis on different things that you can read to do market research for your business. If you don't like reading, if you just love talking to people, then I'm going to design a whole process for you that will help you do that and get what you need for your market research. And I think for a lot of people with ADHD, we've lived in a world that tells us there's one way to do it. And if you don't do it this way, you're wrong. And if it's hard for you, then there's something wrong with you, you know? I mean, that's our experience going to school, right? It's like, there's one way to do your math homework, and there's one way to write a report. And I don't, you know, if you're listening and you have ADHD, I'm sure you had this experience of like, just not being able to do it. And not being able to do it until it was an emergency or is already late. And then having your parents and your teachers nagging at you. And then it's the most painful thing in the world to do work like that. And if you're starting a business, there's no one telling you to do anything. Like, so you have to find enjoyable ways to do it. You have to find ways that fit your personality and your work style. For folks with ADHD, for them to be successful, there really has to be like a very small number of tasks that are like pulling teeth, or else we're never going to do them.
Yeah, I can relate. I'm not diagnosed, but I can relate with a lot of things that I hear about ADHD. I'm like, oh my God, that too. Oh my God, that too. God. So are you yourself diagnosed with ADHD?
I am. Yeah, I was diagnosed when I was a kid. Yeah.
Okay, so you know from that. Okay. And so what is really typical of ADHD, you know, and that you see in adults, you know, compare, like, how would I know that, let's say I'm ADHD possibly, or I'm just an adult, a normal one with bad habits, that sort of way? Yeah,
you know, the biggest thing about, you know, that people with ADHD have in common, especially if they're getting diagnosed later in life, is they assume something's wrong with them. And they spend all this time trying to prove that they can do whatever it is that, you know, they've put up in their mind that other people should be able to do easily. There's this belief system, like, this should be easier for me. Why is this so hard? It's like imposter syndrome on steroids.
Yeah.
Right. And because you're constantly like worried about how you're screwing everything up, you never actually take a moment and look at how, uniquely creative you are. You know, I think this is why a lot of people with ADHD end up starting their own businesses, and you know, in many cases are very innovative. I mean, you mentioned Steve Jobs, he had ADHD. Richard Branson, he has ADHD. Like, and how many businesses has that man started? A great example of this is like when he started Virgin Atlantic kind of on accident. He was flying to the Bahamas and his flight got canceled. And he was like, okay, well, I need to get to the Bahamas. All these people that were on this flight needed to get to the Bahamas. So he went over to a private jet and was like, hey, can I charter you?
Wow.
And then he went over to the people. He's like, hey, I just chartered a jet. Like, I'm selling tickets. Who wants on? You know, and that's how Virgin Atlantic started. But like,
that's
business like that. People with ADHD do.
Yeah, I was about to say, it gets a special kind of crazy.
Yeah. It's the best kind of crazy. But I think for a lot of people with ADHD, it's we're told so often that what we're doing is wrong because it doesn't fit in with the way the world's set up for neurotypicals. Right. And I think the superpower comes out when we realize, well, actually, I have something different to offer this world. I don't have to stick to this. I can create my own thing. And I'm going to just go with that. And it does take a certain level of belief in the universe and belief in yourself and a level of spirituality to kind of trust that everything's going to work out for you. Yeah. You know, if I were still trying to just stay with corporate jobs and be in sales and all this stuff, my self-conscious or my self-confidence would be so low because I have a really hard time sticking with something for more than a year or two because I get bored of the conversation, you know, and in the corporate world, jumping jobs every year or two is not a good look.
No. So then it makes sense that you've been jumping, trying so many different things. It's like there is a appetite or a hunger for variety.
Oh yeah. Yeah. No, it's not even an appetite or a hunger. It's an absolute need for variety.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that I love about my job right now, my business, is that I'm helping so many different kinds of businesses get off the ground. So I specialize in companies that offer a service, but I mean, that could be lawyers, that could be copywriters, that could be coaches, that could be consultants. And I get to learn so much about these different industries as I'm helping them.
Yeah. So that's where you get, now that you seem settled in one, one profession.
Yeah.
You're getting your fix of variety through the people that you're helping because they're so diverse. Yeah,
exactly.
So like you wouldn't dream to have like to work only with, I don't know, like accountants or IT people.
Exactly. Yeah. I would get so bored. And it's funny, like there are moments in my business where I start getting bored with what I'm doing. And then I look at my clients and I'm like, oh my God, I have so many clients who are doing the same thing. I need more diversity. And then like I go and get a couple clients that are doing different things and it's fixed. It's done. Like, all right, cool. I'm happy now.
Okay. So you know yourself so well that you're able to recognize that. So now you wouldn't be throwing the baby out with the bath water, just like, oh, I need to do something else. No, now you're able to, you see it for what it is.
Exactly. Yeah. But I honestly, I don't know that I would be able to do that and have that, that perspective of myself without spirituality. Right. Because like that ability to like, you know, that what we were talking about in the beginning of this conversation is like, oh, well, this isn't it. Like trusting that voice is okay. And it doesn't mean that you're failing. It doesn't mean anything bad about you. It's just like, oh, cool, this is not working for me. You know, I think too often when things don't work for us, we assume there's something wrong with us. Like, you know, I can't tell you how many friends have been in relationships and thought, well, what's wrong with me that I'm not grateful for this person? You know, that I can't be attracted to them anymore, that like, well, what's wrong with me that we're fighting, you know? And it's like, it's not you, like you've grown beyond this. This is no longer the relationship for you. And that's scary. It's scary to walk away from a relationship. It's scary to move. It's scary to change jobs or careers. But you know, we're not, the beautiful thing about being human is we're not stagnant. We don't stay in one place and we don't stay one form and one personality our whole lives.
Yeah, that's the whole point of the human experience. Yeah, because we create all the time, right? So even if we are not moving, we're still creating something, but we're creating stagnation. So we are creating more of what we don't want for ourselves, right? So so acting on that impulse and following it. And so you said, so like that spirituality was a way for you to is a way for you to listen and to know what going through the next step, etc. So is it a good time to talk about some of the ways you're
yeah, sure, I'd be happy to.
Because so like what are the different ways that you rely on, you know, maybe I'm guessing just purely intention, but also what else are you
so for myself, I do three things primarily. I have a meditation practice that I still use transcendental meditation, you know, usually once a day, but sometimes there's a couple weeks where I do something else. But
Maybe you can give us what's the difference between transcendental meditation and other types of meditation?
Yeah, so transcendental meditation, typically you do it 2 times a day. It's 20 minutes a day. It's very prescriptive like that. And you have to work with a transcendental meditation teacher to learn how to do it. So like, I'm not qualified to teach people, and I probably wouldn't want to, like, that's not something that I enjoy teaching, but you're given a mantra. And it's interesting because like they tell you you're not allowed to share your mantra with anyone. And it's not because like it's like this holier than thou thing. It's because they don't want you associating that mantra with any particular memory or any particular person.
Oh, okay, that makes
Like,
sense.
so like if I told you my mantra right now and then you stole money from me like next year.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You see, I know I'm joking, but like then it would be like, oh, like my mantra is now tainted with this person who I have this memory with, you know? And so basically the whole philosophy behind it is you just sit in silence with your eyes closed and you just think your mantra over and over and over again. And what I love about it is that it's not that like clear your brain, like no thoughts, you know, because I feel like that stresses me out and that does not work for people with ADHD because there's no way we can turn off our thoughts. But it's like, okay, we'll drop into your mantra and just notice the thoughts that come through.
Okay.
And like, if anything's particularly important, it's going to come back after the meditation. Like, just trust that it's going to come back. But otherwise, like, just watch it go by and just notice everything. So like, if you're in your apartment and there's construction next door and there's kids screaming outside and maybe your dog's growling in the next room because it wants you to take it out. You know, you just kind of notice all that noise and kind of notice how it's impacting you. And that's part of the meditation as well. So it's a very mindful practice.
Okay. Accepting like the present. And so it sounds like also a bit of a washing machine effect that at the end of it, if like a particular thought is coming back, you know that it's something that maybe requires attention.
Exactly. Yeah.
Great filter. Okay, so transcendental meditation, and you said just 2 other things that you're.
So my meditation practice is that, and then also some visualizations. So oftentimes when, say I'm creating content for LinkedIn, it sounds so crazy that's like part of my practice, but I will do this whole visualization with myself where I sit grounded, kind of like how we started in the beginning with my feet on the floor. And I just imagine I have this deep connection with the earth. And like, I'm breathing love into the earth and the earth is like kind of feeding love back into me. And then I just imagine like tendrils or roots kind of spread throughout the earth and almost tickle the feet of all the people who are meant to work with me.
Oh, that's awesome.
You know? And in that moment, like, I just kind of like ask, like, what do they need to hear from me today? Like, is there something that they're stressed about? Is there something that they need reassurance on? Is there a story that about my life that would really serve them in this moment? And I can't tell you how many times I've gotten clients from those posts.
Wow.
You know, because it's just like, you're just tapping into that knowledge that's all around you. Like I mentioned, the other thing that I do is my tarot cards, and I do this for myself, but I've actually started doing them for clients and on LinkedIn Live, which is kind of how we ended up doing this. And then I recently just got into sigil magic. So have you heard of sigils?
I've heard about sigil. Like, I had a friend who kept talking about them, but I mean, that's probably 15 years ago now.
Yeah. So it's funny. I was telling my therapist about this, and she was really interested in it because basically you take something that you want to happen. It's a manifestation practice. So say you want to make like $300,000 in your business, you come up with a sentence and then you break down that sentence into like, you cut out the vowels, you cut out any repetitive consonants, and then you take those and you can create any kind of like symbol.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So, and my therapist actually said, you know, it's a way of kind of like getting the right brain and the left brain on the same page, because you're doing the creative thing and you're doing the logical thing. Because oftentimes when we want to manifest, it's a very logical thing. You know, we're just saying the words over and over and over again, but our whole brain, our whole beings aren't getting on board with this is true.
Yeah.
And so this is just a way for you to do that. So I actually bought like a whole paint set, and I, you know, at some point, like, I'll do sigils for myself.
I love it. Yes.
So, and then
So it's like turning
obviously not a very good painter, but that's a different story.
So, but you're turning the word into a symbol, basically.
Yeah.
So you're bypassing the cognitive
Exactly.
side of the brain that could analyze the word and say, I'm not too sure about this.
Yep. Exactly.
Oh, that's really
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
And so I saw actually, so I got a question. So
Yes.
is that a sigil on your arm?
Oh no, this is Harry Potter.
Oh,
The Deathly Hallows.
no, different story.
I mean, it kind of is, but not like a sigil.
Yeah, but like still some magic kind of.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. We're staying into the magical realm. I like it. I'm gonna look into the sigils because right now I'm into I'm listening to videos with binaural, beats and kind of repetitive like affirmations. So like getting into the but once in a while my brain goes like, I'm not too sure about that one.
Yeah. And here's the thing, like sigils, like they work for me. Other people may think like this is too weird, and that's okay.
Oh yeah, the weirder the better as far as I'm concerned, but
right.
meta, very metaphysics. I love it. I like it. Yeah. and so the tarot. I'm excited about the tarot.
Yeah,
What's
I was gonna pull a card for this. That's okay. So I love the Mystic Mondays deck. What I love about it is the cards are just like really beautiful. And I think like, I don't know, you feel more connected to something that you find is beautiful, right? And the other thing I love about it, I do not know this deck by heart, and I will read out of the book. But I love the book is it's not like too like spirituality or solely or whatever. It's very pragmatic and good advice. And how I typically use my deck is like to ask about, what should you be doing in your business? What should you be focusing on? What's something you need to let go of to reach the goal.
And are you saying for yourself or with your clients?
I do it for myself. I do it for my clients. And also when I'm doing a live, or if I'm pulling for my audience in general, I'll do a very general, like what's the main message that people need to hear right now. I will say it's really interesting. When I pull cards for myself, there are about 11 cards that come up on repeat for me. And like without fail. And it's like, I literally will just pull cards until something falls out. Those cards don't show up for other people. It's really, whether you believe in it or not, like that is something in itself. So, but is there a question that you have? I'd love to pull a card for you.
Oh my God. Oh, well, geez, you're putting me on the spot now. or maybe for these conversations, maybe for
the audience watching this.
Oh yes. Let's. Is there a message for the audience of these conversations, and maybe that may lead to maybe this conversation need to go a way that I haven't thought of. So maybe something like that.
Okay. So I will. I don't know. Oh, there we go. Very quick. Okay, so we got the 10 of Cups. So that's
okay. 10 of Cups. Yeah. That's a really good card, I think.
That's so literally I had opened this and put it down and it was on 10 of Cups.
Are you kidding me?
I'm not kidding. Like it was just right there. Okay, cool.
Yes.
I don't know how to shuffle very well. So I don't shuffle. I just pull like I do this whole bit where I do this and like
and the one that jumps is the one that stays.
Exactly. Okay, so there we go. So 10 of Cups represents wholeness, connection, and full circle. This page says you've come full circle and are feeling emotionally fulfilled, especially with your relationships and family. The bonds that you share are warm and harmonious, creating a strong foundation. The inner peace you have overflows with clarity and grace, reaching beyond depths through cells in your body to your soul. Time is in your favor, holding space for you to fully express yourself in your relationships. revel in this beautiful moment. It is here where you can appreciate the connection between your friendships and the relationship you have with yourself. You are very much aligned with your personal values, creating an alluring strength and resilience. Enjoy time with your loved ones, knowing that the wholeness you experience with them reflects the wholeness you've created for yourself.
Wow.
So if I were to relate this to someone's business, I would say, what this is pointing to is whatever it is you're wanting to accomplish with your business, it's going to be accomplished through your relationships. Right. And there's that grounding in yourself that it's going to come your way. And then there's going to these relationships and leaning into them and trusting them enough to ask for what you want or what you need. So maybe you're in a fundraising round and you're like a little hesitant to ask people, to either invest, or if they know any investors, this is the moment to really trust those relationships. Maybe there are clients that you've really wanted to work with for a long time and you've just chickened out or been a weenie about it. Now's the time to approach them and just trust that that relationship needs to happen right now. Oftentimes when we hear time is on your side or something like the time is working out, we think, okay, cool, I have all the time in the world. No, not necessarily. It means now's the time.
Oh yeah. It's more like urgency, actually.
Yeah. It's urgency. It's urgency, but it's also this is the moment.
Oh yeah. It's
the moment. Yeah.
The alignment is yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
The moment is right.
Yeah. But also I love also it says that inner peace that you have overflows with clarity and grace, reaching beyond depths through cells in your body to your soul. Whatever it is that you're wanting right now, it on a cellular level, it on a spiritual level, and just letting yourself kind of drop into that and really feel it and experience it is going to help you be more grounded when you go to your relationships and ask for what you need.
And that applies for people who are listening and who are in a traditional career.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. If I can't tell you how many times clients come to me and they're in a traditional career and they want to start a business, but they're so afraid that if they do, they're going to get fired. And it's so funny because I'm like, cool, have you asked your HR department? And they're like, oh, no, I haven't. And it's well, go ask.
Yeah.
If you're really scared of it, go and ask, are you allowed to start a side hustle? And if you don't really want them to know, then go and ask for a copy of the employee handbook. If there's nothing in there, then they can't do anything about it. So,
yeah.
But
no, it's great. I like how you're able to, because you're reading the thing, and but oftentimes I find, okay, well, I getting the information, but then the magic is how the person who reads is able to relate what came out from the card to the situation. I think that's the main. Because sometimes just reading the thing, but you need to kind of put it in perspective, and that's where I find is do it for ourselves is great, but it's awesome when you have the eye of somebody else.
Yeah.
To have that perspective.
Right.
So I like the way you interpreted it.
Thank you.
Yeah. I like it. Look, and maybe I see these conversations as the way to build the relationships. These relationships. And that's I like that.
Yeah, it's even if you don't believe in tarot cards, I strongly recommend going and getting a deck.
Yeah,
because here's the thing, if you're starting a business, part of starting a business is becoming a content creator, whether you like it or not. And even if I don't believe in this, if I pull the Justice card and read that, there's something in that Justice card description that's going to remind me of something that I can then tell a story about, and it's just a way to start prompting your brain and your memories to think of different things, to be able to become a compelling storyteller. That's it.
Absolutely. Yes, that's a great idea, just to get the creative juices going.
Yeah.
There's always gonna, but I'm not doing it seriously. I have have some decks, and at home once in a while, pulling some cards, and yeah, that's interesting that sometimes it's like always, like you said, always the same, you know, like even at couple of days interval could be like, oh, yeah, always the same card. So at some stage it's like, okay, maybe there is really something to listen to. And again, I find it's probably our subconscious knows, you know, which cards to direct us towards in order to get the message that we're looking.
Yeah, to a degree, yeah, but it's interesting because like there's no way for my subconscious to even drive the boat on what card I'm getting.
Mm-hmm.
You know, literally, like there's no way for me to pull the cards and think I want the King of Pentacles, who shows up on most readings that I do for myself.
Oh, okay.
There's just no way for that to happen. Like it's literally just that card falls out for me all the time.
Mm.
So it's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
I like
whatever you want to make of that.
but mostly I love that you're not like, you know, that you're not afraid to kind of expose that and like and show yourself with these aspects of like, oh, yeah.
I want to own, I used to be like, well, that's weird. Like no one wants to see that. And then I started doing it with my clients. And here's what I notice a lot with my clients, especially if they have a deep spiritual practice, is they're so afraid of people finding out. And yet it becomes really weird when it's such a huge part of your life and your business, and yet you're not advertising it. Right. So you're getting, so I had one client a while back who is deeply, deeply spiritual and very into nature and very into like wild spirituality in a way. And she was wanting to get into like executive coaching, and she wanted all these corporate contracts. And she's like, okay, well, I have to hide this side of myself. But like the clients she was attracting were all these like really boring, kind of like buttoned up, like very serious, not into any creative stuff, and definitely not into spirituality. And it wasn't landing. Like they weren't connecting. She wasn't actually getting them as clients. She was having the sales call, but it wasn't going anywhere. But once she started really being more open about her spirituality and about her beliefs and all this stuff, she started attracting her actual people. Right. I had another client who is Christian and very religious, you know, and she was like, oh God, like that's, no one's going to like me. She had this like fear that she's going to be persecuted if she went out, and like was very open about her Christianity. But since she has embraced it, like she's become a very successful coach in the Christian community, you know, but because people want someone who believes like them. They want someone who gives them permission to be open about who they are. Right. Like
so you have to be authentic to do that.
Exactly. Yeah. And you have to be comfortable, like being vulnerable on the front end, you know, and the cool thing about this is like, I haven't scared away clients who don't believe in this. You know, I'm not going to force this on them. Like, this is just like a tool in my toolkit that I do with clients who want it. And that's it.
So on one end, it attracts people who are on the same wavelength, but people who are not don't judge you or don't, you know, like would not discard the possibility of working with you just because there is that they don't believe in themselves.
Exactly.
So yeah, I think it's important to that, like we hear it, that is instead of saying, because I felt that for, you know, for some time as well. It took me a while as well to open up about all of this. And then when I started, I realized that is actually the spiritual aspect that was actually getting people the most curious.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember one time being at a networking event and having that hunch that I need to speak to this woman. And we started talking and we exchanged our LinkedIn. So I opened my LinkedIn and I had said that I was a coach, but a career coach, but not a spiritual. At the time I was saying soul level career coach. When she saw the word soul that I hadn't pronounced, when she saw it written down, she jumped on it. And she's like, oh my God, that's what she was interested in. So, you know, goes to show like there's no point hiding these aspects.
No. Well, and the example I like to use is, have you ever had your picture drawn?
My picture drawn, as in?
Yeah. Like if someone sat there and sketched you?
Actually, no.
Never?
No.
Okay, so I highly recommend you go do that. Have you ever maybe had your palm read?
I had done, yes. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So like you know, that feeling of like when someone's focusing on you, like you almost tingle all over.
Yeah.
Like there's just this focus. There's a reason why people will pay to have their picture drawn. There's a reason why people will pay to have their palm read or have someone do a reading for them, because you get this feeling of like all the focus is on you, is who you are, not just who you're like presenting yourself to the world. Like there's a level of being seen.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if you actually believe in it or not. You know, even if you're getting your picture drawn by someone who you know is a terrible artist and doesn't know how to draw, you still get that. Like they could be drawing a stick figure of you and you still get that sensation, right? We discount the fact that when someone wants to be in business with us, like if they want that sensation, if they want that feeling of being seen by you, it really does not matter how you do it. Like, but you have to be open that that moment is going to happen, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And that openness that goes both ways.
Right. Right. I mean, you could be, you're a career coach, right? So like you could be someone who just goes through and edits their resume and practices interviews with them and helps them go through job descriptions and optimize their LinkedIn and all that stuff. Like, okay, that's helpful, but that sounds really boring.
Yeah.
You know? Like
which is not exactly what I do. I actually more on the, like, you know, reading your soul profile and getting you know.
No, that's like that. Like, oh my God, like that's something that I can't do for myself. I can't read out of a book. It's that deep connection. It's that deep being seen.
Yeah.
Like when you bring your spirituality into your business, that's really what makes a difference. Like you're telling people you're going to be deeply seen by me in a way that you haven't experienced before. And that's that. And it adds to the experience. It doesn't necessarily have to be the whole experience. It's not usually the thing that makes everything, you know, as successful as it is, but it's part of what they're getting. Yeah. And people are willing to pay for that.
Yeah. I like the way you're framing this it's in the being seen.
Yeah.
Maybe on a different level or a deeper level or the most subtle level.
Yeah.
Rather than the practical, the material and the practical. So you have a very good point with that.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So, because I know we're getting towards the end. So my last question for you would be, is there a question that I haven't asked you that you would want to have had the opportunity to reply to?
Oh, that's a great question. That's a great question. You know, if you want to ask me about like spirituality and money, I have something to share there.
Oh, yes. Yes, I actually wanted to. Yes. Top of it. Now that I realized that was one topic. Yeah. Share. Do you? Do you?
Yeah.
Or you good?
Yeah. No. So, it's interesting. There are a couple different elements to this. So like if you're a helper, if you're a healer, if the thing that you're called to do is like in service of others, I want to give you full permission that you get to charge money for that. Like if you're listening to this, you get to charge money for that, because here's the thing, you cannot be a helper or a healer if you can't support yourself. You can't eat and provide shelter for yourself and, you know, save for retirement. There's a lot of shame that we carry around money, you know, like asking for money, like admitting that we like money. You know, it's almost like we have this mentality that we're taught throughout our lives that like money is almost spiritually dirty, right? And yet we forget that like the Catholic Church, what do they do every Sunday? They collect donations, you know? Different religious groups, they have tithing, like you tithe a certain percentage of your income to them. You know, if you wanted to become a monk or a nun, like you can, but you're not going to be homeless. and you're not going to go without food, and you're not going to go without clothes. You're going to have a lot of financial backing, right? Full permission to ask for the money that will allow for you to live the life you want, and also still be a spiritual business owner or a spiritual service provider, and be a helper and healer. There's, we were talking about me being very risk tolerant. There's a reading that I do with most of my clients on their sacred money archetypes. And it basically breaks down like what's your operating system when it comes to making money and saving money and spending money. Because it's going to be different for everyone. Like my archetypes make me like very good at spending money and making money back.
Oh,
right. My archetypes, I do not have one single archetype that makes me good at spending. Or I'm sorry, it makes me good at saving.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, like the work I have to do around money is that I have to focus more on saving and finding, more reliable ways to invest versus someone else who has a different archetype. Like they may actually, their struggle is spending. So they have to learn how to spend better.
Oh. And how do you find out these archetypes?
There's an assessment that I do with my clients.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's, it's an assessment. It's like a 8-minute questionnaire that you fill out, and it basically tells you what your top 3 are. And then through the reading that I do with my clients, like you really learn. It's amazing. Every time I do this reading, people are like very skeptical, like, whatever. And then I start telling them like all of the key attributes of the archetypes, and they start getting very uncomfortable because they're like, oh my God, I'm getting so called out right now. This is like, oh God, like they lean back and they cross their arms and like, how do you know this about me? Like, I want to hide right now. But there's, we're so good at coming up with stories about ourselves, and usually the story is I'm bad with money. I'm bad with money. I can't be trusted with money. There can also be traumatic experiences from our past that impact how we use money right now. And I just want you to give yourself full permission that like, you're not bad with money. Like whatever story you have made up about money, it's probably not true. It's probably a combination of like what's been handed down to you generationally, and also what your money archetypes are. Right. And usually once you figure those 2 things out, like that's when the floodgates open and more money comes to you.
Okay. So just having the awareness, you reckon?
Having the awareness and also compassion for yourself.
Okay.
My very first sales job, I made, oh God, in the first 2 weeks of that job, I made $16,000, and I spent it. I didn't hold on to it because it didn't feel real to me.
Wow.
And like the first step for me in my money relationship was to be okay admitting that I liked money. Right. It's very similar to like our relationship with our spirituality and being open about it.
Yeah, because if you tell yourself you don't like, you're ashamed of it or don't like it, you're naturally, the behavior is like you're not going to hold on to it.
Well, I want you to imagine like being in high school, being a teenager, and like imagine you had a crush on someone, like you really, really liked them, and like you always wanted to find excuses to be around them and all that stuff, and like you wanted to just be in their presence and like hopefully have them ask you out sometime, right? And say like you're walking down the hallway and you realize like they're right in front of you and they're talking to a friend, and imagine like your name comes up in the conversation. And their friend says, oh, what do you think of Julie? And they're like, I don't care about her. Like, no, like she doesn't matter. Like, who cares about Julie? Like, it's like, no one should care about Julie. Julie does not matter. Right? Like, could you imagine what that would feel like? Well, what do we say about money? Oh, money doesn't matter. Like, like who cares about money? Like, if you like money, oh God, like that means there's something wrong with you.
Yeah.
If you're money and you're walking behind you in a hallway, completely having a crush on you, like you're going to be devastated.
You're not going to come back around.
No, it's
so rude. Yeah.
It's we don't realize that like money is just energy, just like love, just like attention. Right. But what happens when you squash love like that? Like, it doesn't come back around, right? You really have to say, but imagine a different scenario if the friend had said, oh, what do you think of Julie? Julie's amazing. I love Julie. Julie like makes so many things possible. And like, I light up when she's around, and oh my God, like you just be like, oh my God, I'm right here. Hello. Come on. Let's go dinner. Come on.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's a great metaphor, just to think about, yeah, money as a sensitive yeah, person that has feelings, and who likes to be loved as well. Who doesn't like to be loved?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. I'm gonna yeah, you're getting me thinking now, like, you know, because something like yeah, I'm gonna get a little bit more curious about how I, you know, how I talk and think about money. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Awesome. So is there anything else that you want to, you know, like to leave our audience with?
Just one thing, stop being weenie. Whatever it is that you want to do, just go and do it already. There's no waiting. That's
No
it.
waiting. Okay.
No waiting. Just stop being a weenie. I know it's scary. It's never going to not be scary until you've done it a couple dozen times. That's it.
Yeah, but that's it's never it is going to be scary anyway. So the sooner we get over it, the better, right?
Yep, exactly.
Well, thank you so much, Katie, for your time and your, you know, your fun and your tarot card. And yes, so I'll send, everyone will get, you know, the ways to contact you, so to get in touch with you. And I hope to see you again, you know, maybe.
Oh, this is so much fun. I'd love to come back anytime.
Awesome. Thank you so much, my dear. Okay, so goodbye, everyone, and I'll see you next week for the next conversation. Bye. Love you.